All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Gentleman's Atlas podcast. Gentlemen, ladies, I want to introduce you to someone that popped across my feed on social media recently, heard his message, heard what he was saying, resonated really well with what he was saying, and believe in delivering value by creating these conversations where we get to know each other, we get to talk, bounce ideas off each other, because again, that's how we develop as individuals. That's how we inspire others and inspire ourselves. So I want to bring someone that I believe will offer tremendous value, tremendous conversation, bring his side of the story to show you how no matter where we come from, no matter our backgrounds, no matter what we do, we can all relate in the idea of pursuing a better tomorrow. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Jonathan Ochoa. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you reaching out to me because this is a great opportunity to be able to conversate with other people that are in the same development space as we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started with kind of what a little bit we talked about before we started recording. You know, you said fitness is a big part of your life, and it's been a big part of mine. What have you learned, and what has fitness taught you about yourself that, again, you've been able to take into other aspects of life?
I feel like fitness for me has really it's almost been like a pillar of like it's like if you are serious about something, if it's a goal in business and fitness, whatever it might be. For me, the way I saw it was, I started my fitness journey, and it was for me, right? It was for me to get in shape. It was for me to become a better version of myself and push myself every single day. And you learn that as you're going down that road, that you start to face your own level of adversity, right? You face the days that you don't want to go, the days that you don't want to do the things that need to be done, and you start to learn that you can either like not go forward and not push forward and just like not go on those days, or you can push past those days and you start to discover little pieces of a puzzle and you put them together as you go. And I feel like the biggest thing that I always pull from fitness for me was that I talk about a lot is discipline. I feel like discipline is a foundational skill that's required in order to achieve any level of greatness. And if you can master the level of or the skill of discipline, like what can you not do? In my eyes, that's the way I see it.
No, right. I like that a lot with the idea that discipline is key. Discipline applies in every single aspect of life because at the end of the day, you have to remember that the systems and the habits that you have will eventually be what leads to your success or what leads to your progression. Because on the days that you don't feel motivated, on the days that you do want to say no, do you have the structures, do you have the systems in place where you say, I'll do it even if I don't feel that way? Because what happens is with a lot of successful people is that they'll see that a lot of times they're having bad days. A lot of times they're not feeling like doing the work that needs to be done. But because they understand their role and they also have built a discipline over years of consistency, they do it anyways and they overcome these barriers. And it's often in those days that your character is tested, that you build yourself more and more to honestly create what you're trying to create. Because again, it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be a quick thing. Success is long in coming, and success is not one time. It's reoccurring, right? You have to find successes in your everyday battles. But if you want to find that, you have to first win the battle.
Right. I feel like the biggest thing with fitness is like you said, it's that pushing past those barriers because when you fitness is almost a way of working on that skill discipline. It's being able to sharpen that skill every day that you go, and showing up on the days that you don't want to go. And it's almost like you said, like fitness, I correlated a lot to business because it's in the aspect of when you first start your fitness journey, after the first week, the first couple days, you're not going to see results. Sometimes within the first month, you're not going to see any results, and you have to just keep going and showing up every day, regardless of not seeing results. And that's the same for business. You might start a business, and you might not see the results. Initially, don't come for months, maybe even years, depending on who you talk to. And you just have to keep showing up every single day and almost have that hope and believe that one day those results will come and they will manifest. But it's up to you to show up and develop those daily habits that will pivot you in that direction of the results long term.
Yeah, no, it's all about consistency, right? Without the initial idea, the inspiration, you don't really know where you're going, right? That's the idea. You got to get first, find what you want, because you don't want to progress to something that wouldn't do anything for you. And that's in the sense of pursuing something blindly without understanding what its purpose is, comparative to pursuing something to get where you need to go. But it's key to understand that you first have to visualize, you have to conceptualize what it is you want, right? Because that completely changes everything. And again, on this podcast, we've mentioned before, if you want something traditional, if you want something that you can kind of adapt and have a certain lifestyle that's traditional, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand, there's certain things that will come out of that, and there's certain things that won't come out of that. And a lot of the expectation in today's society is that we all want the result of the people putting in the work, yet we're not putting in the work. So it's this false narrative where you're creating this idea that you're not getting the outcomes you want because you're not putting the work of those outcomes. And so you have to ask yourself, if you want to live traditionally, if you don't want to stress or put all those hours in, that's fine. But you can't expect those outcomes if you're not willing to put in the work. And again, the work will be hard. And as we're saying, it is about those small moments. It is about those small wins, because broken down, all of this is strategic thinking. You have to think long term, but the day to day is your tactical. That's your battles. And you don't win a war if you're losing all your battles.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's the analogy of, building a wall one brick at a time. Like, you can't just expect to build the wall in one day, right? Like, I'm 2 years, about, I want to say like a year and a half, or no, a year and a half, 2 years, no, 2 years into my fitness journey, right? And so like, I've learned a lot, especially because I never thought about it this way. I never thought about fitness being a tool. I see it as a tool for me to sharpen everything in my life, because I feel like fitness really challenges you, right? You can really push yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, right? You show up every day, and like I said, on the days that you don't want to go, and it's not just the aspect of just showing up to the gym. Now there's another aspect of, now you have to have the discipline at home. You have to have the discipline in your food if you want to see the results, because you can't outperform, or you can't out exercise a bad diet, right? So you have to have the discipline, take the discipline from the gym and apply it in other areas. And so I feel like that's been like the biggest thing for me, is taking the discipline that I learned there, and the skill that I learned there, and applying it to all of my life, right? If I want to I picked up the habit of reading, right? And like, I apply that discipline there on the days that I don't want to read, on the days I don't want to pick up a book. I just do it, because I know that I may not want to, but the results of picking up that book every single day will show up down the road, a year, 2 years, 3 years, when I've read 100, 200 books, right? And I'm gaining the knowledge from different people, from different, I almost see them as mentors, right? Every book I pick up is a form of mentorship for me now. And I didn't see it that way. When you first start, you might not see the things this way, but as you go and you develop and you go down that path, your mindset, your perspective starts to shift in a different way as you develop that mindset, right?
No, that's important on several aspects, and I want to break that down for the people into, you have to sometimes jump before you're ready, because you'll never truly be ready for what's to come and what you're expecting out of a situation. Because when you feel uncertain, when you feel scared, when you feel like you're not ready, that's the time you jump. Because you will always learn more from action and from the mistakes of that action than you will trying to plan the situation. Because you don't know how you'll react. You don't know how you'll adapt to the situation until you place yourself in that situation. And at the same time, you have to also understand, what is your expectations and what are you willing to sacrifice? Because that's what it boils down to. It's about sacrifice. It's about finding meaning in your sacrifice, meaning in the pain that you go through and the struggles and the suffering that you go through. Because again, meaning in that suffering is the highest form of fulfillment of any given person. It's the highest form that you will ever find. And so you have to ask yourself, are you doing it because it's what you love to do? Are you doing it because you have to do it? Are you doing it because you want to escape? You really have to be honest. And there's no right or wrong answer. And there's no judgment to be had. It's your life and you choose it as you see fit. But there's a thought to be had that people want different things out of life. And some people, working is what they love to do. There's people I've talked to that they will tell me, I don't care about the money anymore. And they're making millions. They don't care about the fame or the acknowledgement or the fans. They say, if I couldn't work anymore, I don't know who I'd be. I go crazy. I know people that can't take more than 3-day vacations because they love the work. They love putting themselves through long hours. But that's not everybody. And it doesn't have to be everyone. But then you have to ask yourself, if I'm not that kind of person, what the kind of person am I? Do I want a work-life balance? Maybe I only want to work 8, 7, 6 hours and spend time doing other things, recreational activities, time with my family. Those are good things. There's nothing wrong with those things. But then you have to ask yourself, what positives and what negatives come out of it? Because every choice has a consequence. You're the one that decides if the consequence is good for you or against you.
Right. I feel like, at least this is for me. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like one thing that I had to kind of, I guess, battle was knowing that not everyone thinks like you and not everyone wants to live the same life as you, right? Some of us want to achieve a lot of success. Like you said, some of us don't. Some of us just want to live a normal life, a peaceful, or whatever you might call it, right? A simple life, whatever that might be. And one thing that I had to battle with was finding out why doesn't everyone want to achieve big success? Why doesn't everyone want to make a lot of money? Why doesn't everyone want to help people? Why? Like, why don't you want to improve yourself? Why don't you want to, like, why is that? And I feel like you come to understand that people have their own vision of their dream, right? And one person's vision might be they want to live in a mansion, they want to help millions of people, and then another person's might be they want a piece of land with a small cabin and some land to farm on, and that's what they find as happiness, right? So that was one thing I had to really battle, was trying to figure out why doesn't everyone want to self-develop? Why doesn't everyone want to work hard and do all this stuff? Because I feel like that's how I am. I'm done this journey of where I want to start my own business, and I want to I discipline myself on these daily habits, and every single day I show up to develop myself, reading, going to the gym, learning and stuff like that. And like you said, some people can't take 3-day vacations because they love the work, right? And I feel like that's how I am. I struggle to not develop myself. I feel like if I'm almost, it might sound funny, but if I'm sitting down and watching a movie, I almost feel like I'm wasting my life away. Like, I'm not developing myself, and when I should be learning about the business I want to start, or creating more content on TikTok, because that's what my main focus has been. And if I'm not doing that, if I'm not pushing myself to be better, I almost feel like I'm wasting away my life. But that's for me. That's my perspective. That's the way I see my life. My life's to do a lot of great in this world and achieve a lot of success doing it. And so it's at one point it was a struggle to understand why people were almost like you, right? So
No, that's I think a big part of self-development that a lot of people don't talk about is that part one, it's the aspect of being alone, and two, it's that part that you come to a realization at some point that not everyone wants that. Not everyone is built for that. And not everyone thinks that that's an ideal. So we're going to break it down first into that alone part because that's huge. And people, the sayings, it's lonely at the top. And it's a reality because the higher you want to go in life, the farther you want to shoot, the less people, one, there are in that area, but the less people, two, are the people that want to get into that area, the less people that you're going to find. Because sure, everyone's good for the good times. Everyone's down to have fun. But you have to ask yourself, who's good there for the bad times as well? And so the reality is you have to be comfortable being alone. You have to learn to love being alone. Doesn't mean you have to push people away, but it does mean you will have to say no to certain things to say yes to the ones that you want to be doing. And just to bring it back, when Stefan was on the podcast, he talked about it. I asked him, what was it like to be with others walking in their purpose? And he said, man, I didn't know. I don't know how that feel until maybe a year or two ago when I met someone walking in their purpose. Because you have to understand, if you can find that, if you can meet people that are like-minded, that energy will push you and boost you more than you think possible. Because what it does is you're bouncing back and then you're like, one person says an idea, another person contradicts the idea with another idea, and it's just a breeding ground for creativity, for innovation. That's why in some of the top companies and some of the Forbes 500 companies, they had open workspaces because that's the ideal that they wanted to push. They wanted to pursue this creativity. And again, you have to understand, and it's a harsh reality, and sometimes it sucks to think about it, but not everyone wants the same thing. And in a sense, that might not be good for you because you kind of want that. You want to talk to that about those to certain people, but you also understand it's sometimes good because it lets you understand that what you're doing isn't for everyone. And if you love what you do, then it's unique, and that makes your purpose unique, which again, it already is, but you have to understand that and believe that. And so another thing with that is that if you know that not everyone wants to do that, what kind of people are you surrounding yourself with? Because again, you want different energies, you want different essences around you. So for me, for example, when it comes to friendships, I have, different levels that I bode with. So like my core circle is very tiny. It's almost non-existent. But it's people that genuinely want similar things out of life. They want to pursue incredibly great things that most people would think of insane. And those are the kind of people that I really like in my headspace because that's the kind of thing I'm trying to do. And outside that, the second circle is people that have really good ideas, they're knowledgeable, but don't necessarily want the same things. Because one, if they're not in the inner core, then they're affecting less of who I am. But if they're kind of still close, we still get that idea bouncing around, but I'm not in a space where they're trying to do other things. And the third one's acquaintances. It's people that I know. I like to be friendly. I like to meet everyone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on a close basis with them. Mm-hmm. And that's friendships. But for me, relationships kind of switch around because in a relationship, I'm not looking for those same qualities. Competition in that sense isn't healthy in a relationship. Having a partner that's very ambitious, that competes with you isn't necessarily healthy, right? So for me, while I want strength, while I want someone that can be independent when they're on their own, for me, relationship, I've always looked at someone that likes to depend on me, that likes to follow my lead, that's empathetic, that understands emotions, that understands me, that's intelligent, that adds value to what I'm trying to do. I'm a very hot-natured person. I like the work. I like being in high stress because for me, that's passion. But with a partner, I like a cool partner, someone that I can relax and have peace. And so that's key to understand because often having those different kind of natures between that hot and cool natures is really important to what your development is. Because again, when I'm in that hot natured environment, all I'm doing is working, bouncing ideas and that passion. But when I'm in that cool environment, I'm allowed to clear my head. And that's when I get a lot of ideas too, because when my head's clear, I go back level headed and I can look at things and find mistakes that I didn't originally find.
Right. No, I feel like I feel like I want to touch on two things that you said. The first one was feeling alone. You know, feeling alone when you go down this path of wanting to do big things that people can't even imagine, that has never been done in your family line, right? I feel like that's where I am right now, right? I'm in that like middle ground of like that, like my circle is almost basically like non-existent. Like I just like I don't I don't like you said, like I hang out with like I'll share time with family sometimes and stuff like that, but for the most part, like I'm doing my own thing because it's like you said, it's very hard to come, at least for me right now. It's been very hard to come across people that are like-minded, that are going down this path, right? And there's a lot of people that don't understand it either. And that was a big thing for me when I came back from the military. I told myself like, okay, I like, what do I want out of life? Like, I already knew what I wanted out of life before the military, but is that still the same thing now that I'm getting out? And it kind of led me back to that road of like, okay, I want to pursue having my own business. I've always wanted that. So it kind of led me back to that. And then I kind of went back. I kept going to the gym and I led me down more of self development, right? I want to develop these habits. And one big, one big person that I always give my all time thanks to was is Andy Frisella. I'm not sure if you ever heard of him before. He's his podcast. I listen to him a lot, and he kind of I admire him and what he's done and how he helps people. And I kind of I kind of started, okay, I'm going to develop myself. If I want to get onto this level, if I want to achieve the success I want to achieve, I need to I need to become a way different version of myself, but what is it going to take to get there, right? So I kind of started, oh, I'm going to hone these skills. I'm going to hone discipline, my grit, my fortitude, all this stuff. I'm going to work on it. And as I did that, I realized like, okay, I came home from the military. I don't want to surround myself with people that are going to be taking my energy away from me, people that aren't going to be contributing to where I want to go, right? And it kind of pushed me in this direction where I kind of just pulled away from like all my friends, because all my friends, and there's nothing bad about this. Like you said, everyone has their own life they want to live, but for me it wasn't going out and drinking beers on Saturday anymore. It was about me going to the gym and developing myself and being there with my wife and my kids, right? Like that's what it was for me. And it's like I don't have time to be wasting on the weekends. I don't have time to be drinking. I need to develop myself to become a better person, a better husband, and a better father, right, for my kids and my wife. And so for me, I'm at the point where it's like it's pretty lonely. Like I feel alone, but at the same time, I've made peace with being alone, because I feel like for a long time I kind of enjoy being alone because it allows you to have those conversations with yourself that you need to have in order to move forward. And if you don't give yourself the time to have those conversations with yourself to figure out who you are, what you want to do, is this really the path you want to take? And instead of having those conversations, you just go out and drink away your thoughts, and you just party. You're always distracting yourself. You never take the time to find out who you are and deal with your internal, with your spirituality. I feel like that's a big piece of where I'm at, and I'm happy that I've been alone for a long time, because it's allowed me to kind of give myself straight and get me almost like zeroed in on where I want to go. And then to their second point was, like you said, you want to have a partner that's like the hot and cold, right? And for me, that's my wife. For me, like I'm the go 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 ambitious guy, and she's like the opposite. Like she just wants to chill, like she wants to relax, she wants to be in her garden, like she wants, some land and some farm animals, and she just wants to relax, and that's her. She doesn't want to pursue anything ambitious, super big, but like that's my opposite, right? And so I feel like a lot of people think that like I want to date someone that's exactly like me, or I want to date someone that's super
No, you
ambitious,
don't.
but people don't realize that you will clash really hard if you date someone that's exactly like you. Like you want to have that. For me, at least, that's what I realized. Like that's why they say opposites attract, and I feel like it's very true. You want to have that opposite side of you that you can go and kind of relax and get your thoughts straight and then come back level headed, like you said.
Yeah, that's an I think it's a multi-piece equation, but that's a general part of attraction is that opposite nature. What people fail to understand when they say opposites is they don't mean completely different in the sense of where you're trying to go. So
Mhm.
opposites attract in terms of personality traits, right? You want someone that can tend to be a little more agreeable if you have someone that's more disagreeable, because again, one would conflict if they were both disagreeable, or if they were both agreeable, then they would both not get anything done because it's all about, oh, you got it, no, I got it, no, you got it, like all this different stuff. But what you have to understand too is if you are opposites in values or where you want to be going or direction or purpose in that sense, you will also have very big issues. Because if someone wants to go to New York and the other wants to go to LA, and there's kind of that split in a sense, you're going in different paths, but you're trying to go in the same direction. And what happens is you go with this person and you realize you don't want the same things. So you have to ask yourself, if you were someone that is fulfilled by purpose, is fulfilled by meaning, are you going to have someone that's willing to sacrifice what they were trying to do and follow you, or are what they're doing already trying to follow you? Because what happens is people are like, oh, this is the one, they're everything, they mean the world to me, and they want to go somewhere and do something there that they've been dreaming their whole life, and that's not what you want. But neither one of you are willing to sacrifice what you wanted to do for the other, and then now you're at an impasse because you don't know what to do. And so what happens is if you try to go with, again, similar people or people that are just the same as you, which one's going to win out? And the problem is no one wins in the end, because if one gives something up and they weren't willing to do so, then you lose that battle because they're not happy. And if they're not happy with you, that all hits back on you. Again, like this idea, you don't win an argument with your partner, right? There's no winning against them. It's not a battle against them. You're working together. And if there's an issue, you solve it together. And that's what people fail to understand. You got to find someone with similar values. If you're raising kids, how do you want those kids to be raised? Religion's a huge one. People don't talk about religion, but if one's atheist and one's a Christian, Christianity is a huge part of raising a kid in a Christian household. That's a huge part. You're giving thanks to God. You're saying grace. You're instilling them to pray every night. If you're an atheist, you're not saying those things. You don't pray to a God. You don't pray to this thing. And it's like, if you don't solve these things, you are going to set up yourself for loads of trouble. Again, these aren't easy conversations to have, but they must be done. And that's again with the relationship. One relationships can hugely benefit your life, but you have to be in a position to accept it. You have to be in a position to work on it. Understand that a relationship isn't just a one-time thing. You don't just get in a relationship, sign a contract, congratulations. You don't have to work on yourself or a partnership or a marriage. Like, no, that's not how it works. And so what's key and what a lot of people need to understand is you have to understand what you want, what you're willing to sacrifice, and again, what you're willing to do for someone else. Because for men, this part is for men. The next part I'll say for women. For men, you have to understand: are they willing to let you take the lead? Are they willing to follow you? Are they willing to support you? Are they believing in what you're able to do? Do they understand your capacity? Do they understand your drive and ambition? And for women, there's just another thing. You have to really find out who you are. This is a generalization, but on general, 70 to 80% of women are more fulfilled by a family, by a sense of love in the family, than they are by a purpose or a job. They don't always realize it when they're young, but they will when they're older. In fact, there was a research study done on a group of graduating lawyers from a law school, and 70% of the class was women. They were all female, top of the class. They were higher stats, higher performers than the males of the class. They went into a law career. They were hit about 30, 32 and realized that even though they were the best performing at the law firm, that's not what they wanted. And 80% of them ended up leaving to go start a family. And it's not that that's what you have to do. Like, you make your own decisions, but you have to understand, are you more fulfilled by purpose? Is that when you're the happiest? Or are you more fulfilled when there's love by someone that's strong, that can run and stuff like that? And again, if you're not that person, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you go do you. But once you understand that, you have to also realize that maybe you are that ambitious person. But a man who's ambitious and is driven has his priorities and has his time dedicated. For anyone that's highly ambitious or desires something and is going after it, their most valuable thing that they'll give you is their time. So they're not going to be texting you all the time. They're not going to be trying to do all these things because, one, they're focused, they're locked in, and they can't afford to be distracted. So you also have to realize, like, is that something you're okay with? Because the more ambitious they are, the more time they're spending on what they're trying to do, that means less time from you. And so are you willing to go through that? And that's a huge thing that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, I feel like that's huge. Like, and I definitely see that in my marriage. Like, my wife, like you said, like, an ambitious man is gonna be busy. He's gonna have his priorities straight. And I feel like that's where I'm at, right? I'm focused on a lot of stuff. And like that's the thing with like relationship, finding that person that you mesh with really good, that can understand that you're not going to text me all the time, you're not going to call me all the time, that if I give you a call and you're busy, I'll leave you alone, right? Like, okay, I'll leave you alone, let you do your thing, and when you have time, you'll talk to me, right? And having that person that truly understands that and doesn't start to almost conflict with you because they don't understand what you're trying to do, and having a person that truly supports what you're trying to do as well, I feel like is huge. Because my wife, for me, it's very huge that she supports what I'm trying to do, and she gives me my space to perform what I do on a daily basis without having that extra conflict in there. Because that is just, if I feel like as an ambitious person, if you have a partner that's tagging you about not giving them time and is tagging you about not texting them all the time, that is taking away from your energy, that is taking away from what you're trying to do, and that is only gonna push you further away because you have these ambitions that you're trying to do. And at least for me, I'm not willing to just quit all my dreams to just be with my wife. As harsh as that may sound, like, those are my dreams, those are my goals, and I'm getting to those goals at all means. And having a partner that supports you and understands the time that you're dedicating towards that dream is it's vital. Like, you have to have that. If you don't have that and you're conflicting with someone, I feel like that's going to cause a lot of harm in your life, and it's going to be something big that gets in your way to getting to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, that's in a sense what you have to understand about yourself and relationships and partners. One, you also have to understand too that sometimes you might not find the person you originally thought is the one. You have to know if they're adaptable, if they're open to change, if there's someone that's not concrete in a sense, not value sense, but in terms of what they're willing and not to give. Because there is compromise to be had. And there's also an understanding, are they actually going to be okay? Because someone might kind of give in and be like, yeah, it'd be fine. But then under all that, they're like really upset that you're not giving them all the time in the world. And it's like, men, you have to establish boundaries. You have to establish what you're seeking before you get into these relationships. And for women, a lot of women communicate through indirect communication. It's subliminal. They don't express it. And a lot of guys, unfortunately, don't pick up on that. So if you're a woman that's trying to communicate to a guy about some needs that you have, and they're not knowing that you have those needs, it's your responsibility to be transparent about that, right? You're only going to build a relationship, a positive one, off communication. If there isn't communication, there's always going to be conflict. And there's another part to be had where you have to, vetting is serious. It is a serious process that every man needs to do if they're looking into get in a relationship, whether it's even short term or long term, because you have to understand, what is it you want? Because if you want something long term, you have to understand what that means. So the way I break down my personal dating life, it goes through 4 stages. So there's the talking stage, right? That's just general shared interest. Okay, I feel interested. We kind of like maybe had a date or two. Cool. Casual dating, that's usually the stage most of the time I operate in, where it's just like, going on dates several times. We're open. We've expressed that we've liked each other, but we're still kind of like, there's no commitment at that point, right? You're still kind of figuring out this person. You're learning about this person. Next stage after that is dating exclusively. So now, you're not in a relationship yet, but you're kind of seeing, is this something that's viable? Is this something that we enjoy? Is this something that benefits both of us? Is it something that would actually work? And that for me is the vetting process for a relationship. That's where I'm figuring out, are they okay with where I'm going? Are they willing to take my lead on this? Are they willing to support me? And then if that checks out after a period of time, that's when I'm like, okay, this is someone I want a relationship with. What happens? The amount of relationships you get out of is a lot less because you're getting into a lot less relationships. But what happens then? They're more high value. They offer more value to both parties. And you also know what you're getting into. And there's different requirements for each stage. You have to understand that you're going to need more shared values, shared direction, shared ideas if you're going to pursue something long term. If it's something short term where it's just fun, where you're going out, you don't necessarily need that. But then again, you have to decide, what's your focus? What's your balance like? Because for me, there's moments where I go out and I socialize and I network, but there's also moments where I'm working on my stuff. So I'm kind of ceasing contact with all these different things. So you establish it yourself. You lead your life. And I want to transition this into accountability and truth and being honest with yourself. Here's the deal. You have your life. You can't live anyone else's. You don't tell anyone else what to do. You don't change anyone. None of that. It is your life. Right now, wherever you are, whatever age, whatever experience, skills, whatever your assets, your debts, I don't care what it is. Right now, you need to sit down. You need to look at where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go. And then be honest. Find a starting point. Find the shortcomings. Find your strengths. Find what made you the happiest to do and start changing your life. Take it small. Take it slow. But find the steps that build to what you want to do. Because one, if you're thinking about relationships and you haven't developed yourself, you're kidding yourself of finding a partner that's good for you. On top of that, if you don't develop and you settle, you will always live in regret if you start developing and then you feel as if you could have done better. Because that's the worst feeling to have in the world. That if you settle for someone that you aren't willing to have if you become better. And there's a scenario that you guys should think about. Let's say you're in a relationship right now. And let's say right now you're not where you want to be. Would you stay with this person should your net worth now be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million? And if the answer is no, if you're hesitating, that's a big truth. And it's an uncomfortable truth, and it's one you might not want to hear. But at the end of the day, you got to understand, is this someone you want to be with, right? And if there's a connection, if there's a strong bond, and they've supported you, and you would want them at the top with you, then good. That's good. And that means that there's healthy relationship there that's not affected by your growth. But if you settle, if they're just the best you could do at the time, you're easily going to throw them out in your head. And that's what you have to understand. You're lying to yourself in a lot of aspects, and you need to start being honest. Truth hurts, honesty hurts. But once you have a starting point, that's when you really see growth in your own life.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like, and I did this for a long time. Like we lie to ourselves. Like And it's simple. A lot of people lie to themselves, right? They tell themselves that they aren't enough, that they can't do these things and they can't do this. But in reality, I've gotten to a point in my life where the way I see it is no matter, like, it's not about the outside circumstances that make you who you are or who you want to be. It's about the internal circumstances that will show the results that you want. So, we could talk about that. I come from poverty and I was fat my whole life and this is just how I am. Like, this is just who I am. And blame it on that and almost sell yourself on that story and lie to yourself because you're lying to yourself. You're telling yourself this story and you're believing it, but in reality, you could 180 all that. As long as you put in the work, put in the effort, and show up for yourself every single day, you can turn that around. But we sell ourselves on these lies all the time, right? Like, and excuses, they're excuses, right? And I felt like I did that for a long time. I sold myself on these lies and that I couldn't do this stuff and kind of pushing things off because it wasn't for me. And at the end of the day, when you've developed into a way greater version of yourself and you look back, you realize wow, I lied to myself a lot. I really sold myself on these lies, and it held me back. It was a form of self sabotage, and I feel like when taking it back to when I said that a lot of people don't spend some time alone. They don't have those conversations with themselves. They don't try to dive deep into who they are and trying to figure out, like, okay, like, what is it I want to do, or how can I become the greatest version of myself, so when I do meet a female, when I do, if I'm looking for a relationship, if I want a quality female, I have to become a quality male. I can expect to attract a quality female and not work on myself, not work out, and go to the clubs every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and just go to work and go home, watch TV, and eat pizza, and expect you're gonna pull a quality woman. You're gonna pull a $1 million woman, right? Like, if you want that quality woman, that those qualities don't come without a price that you have to pay, and you have to pay that price as well to become and build a quality man with values and stuff like that. That you get yourself to that level and work on yourself, and then when you do start looking for a relationship and you've built yourself to this person, you can then attract a quality woman. And this applies to females as well. It's the same. It's vice versa. It's the same thing. Working on yourself to get to a level where you can attract a quality man, not just a man that likes to go to the clubs all weekends or likes to just be in the streets all day. Like, I mean, that's the way I see it.
No, it's something you have to understand. You have to level up as a man or as a woman, with the first realization that there's different things that different people want. So men want different things than women want. So for a woman, you want someone that can support themselves and can support you, that's intellectual, that's ambitious, that's going to pursue something, that's a good family man, that's someone that is also able to take care of other people, but is assertive in his ambition, he's assertive in his purpose. And then vice versa, as a female, you have to understand what men want. And so one of the big things for men's is looks, like, are you healthy? Are you eating the right foods? Are you working out? Are you taking care of your body? Because that's important to men, plain and simple. 2, men want peace. Men want to come home and not be yelled at. Men want to come home and have someone that is there for them, that understands they might have just worked 12 hours in a day and would enjoy some company or a meal or share and watch a movie, or maybe they just want to go to bed. Like, adaptability, nurturability, those are incredible traits to have as a woman for most men, right? And if you feel like that's not you, then don't be that. But then you don't complain if you're not getting that kind of man, or you're not getting that man that you want. Because again, it's comparisons, it's the yin and the yang. You have to have those balances, and most of the times people fit into those balances. So that, again, you have to be honest with who you are and what you want. Because again, if you're lying to yourself about your identity, you're going to mess up those relationships because you've lied to yourself and you don't even know who you are. And so again, with these relationships too, you have to understand you can't get into a relationship if you are not who you wish to be yet, right? Unless you're either where you or who you want to be, not necessarily where you want to be, or you have a general idea and you're building, you shouldn't be trying to get onto other people. Because if you're dependent on someone else, you'll cave every relationship. Dependency kills everything. Why? Because you need to be self-sufficient as a man to begin with. You have to be able to be alone, to be okay with your thoughts, with your ideas, with your beliefs, and then you build somewhere else. Again, we've brought this metaphor on the podcast. I'm going to say it to you. You are like a cake. Your purpose could be your eggs. Your habits are the flour. All the ingredients are the principles, the ideas, the values, the skills that make up who you are. If those are taken care of, if those are strong, you have a good cake. You have a good tasting cake, a well-rounded cake with the right proportions. Another person, friendship, relationship is like the icing on a cake, right? So the decoration, the flavors, they can add value to your life. But if you take away the icing, if you scrape it away, it's still a very good cake, right? The icing never defined it. So you have to understand that you're not defined by anyone else other than yourself. And that's important to segue into this message that when you're working on yourself, a lot of people sometimes aren't afraid of the work, but they're afraid that they actually might succeed. And they don't know what that means in terms of responsibility for their life. They're afraid that things might be different because they might just work out, and they won't admit it to themselves. They won't admit that maybe, just maybe, taking a chance on trying something different could change their lives for the better. And it's a reality that, you have to understand there's two ways of living in the world. One is you don't accept responsibility. You complain, you blame others, you blame it on the system, you blame it on your upbringing, you blame it on past experiences, you blame it on society or the government or the education system, whatever it is. You don't take responsibility. Now, here's the upside. You don't take responsibility. You're free. You don't have to worry about anything. You can blame others. And it's almost like being a Peter Pan. You're in Neverland and everything's wonderful. Now, what's the downside? You're not taking any responsibility. There's no meaning to be had in life, and your life has no meaning. Without responsibility, your life doesn't have meaning. People don't depend on you. People don't look up to you, and you're not providing any value. So you live a life where, you escaped meaning. You escaped responsibility. Congratulations. You leave and you were born and you die. And you leave life without any responsibility because you were never accepting of it. And the other way, which again has several levels, it has a scale to it, is accepting responsibility for life, accepting responsibility for existence. Now, what is life? Life is suffering and it's pain. But what are humans? Humans are animals built to find meaning in the pain and the suffering. Right? That's where life comes happiest. I'm not happiest when I'm relaxing. I'm happiest when I'm working in something I believe in, and everything changes. Everything becomes different in that sense because it's meaningful to me. So when you claim responsibility, sure, it's a burden, but your strength is that burden, you can either bear it with cowardice or with pride. You can have it on your shoulders and stand up straight, look life in the eye and say, I'm proud of being who I am. Maybe I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I once was, and I'm on the journey of being what I wish to become.
Yeah, that last piece right there was powerful. That you're not where you are, but you're on the road to becoming who you want to be. And I feel like that's where I'm at, right? Like internally and as a person now, I'm like, wow, like I'm so much more further than I was a year ago. Not even just physically, but mentally, especially mentally. For me, it's been like night and day. It's just like, wow. Like, and I feel like when you, if like for me, going back to wanting to achieve greatness, if you want to do become really successful in life, the one trait that you see across all really successful people is accountability. And I feel like coming from the military, that was one thing that was instilled into me day in and day out was accountability. Accountability of your equipment, accountability of yourself, accountability of your soldiers. And if your soldiers didn't show up, it was your fault. It was the leader's fault. You take accountability of their actions, and you may not see it. You may not see it that way, right? That's their fault. But at the end of the day, it's the perspective of viewing everything as I take accountability for every action, whether it's my fault or not. Because when you take accountability of everything that happens in your life, I feel like you can push yourself to such a new level and start to realize that you do dictate your life, that you are in control of your life. And a lot of people choose to not believe that they aren't in control. A lot of people choose to believe that it's what happens to them and not what happens for them. And they believe that like I said, their outside circumstances dictate who they are and who they're going to be. But in reality, it's the internal circumstances that dictate who you are and what life you settle for. And if you choose to work on the internal circumstances, if you choose to develop the daily habits, if you choose to put in the work, those things will pivot you and will lead you down the road where your vision is. And I feel like that's where I'm at. Like, I put these habits in place. I put these daily routines in place to serve me, to take me to where I want to go. And every day I choose to take accountability of everything that happens, because it allows me to see the failures and learn from them as well. And so I think that accountability is a must. It's a must in self-development. If you choose to not take accountability of your actions or the things that happen to you, I feel like you'll put a ceiling on yourself without knowing it.
Yeah, no, I think a closing message for this interview is, some takeaways that, yeah, accountability, if you lack accountability and self-improvement, you're always half in, half out of it. You're never fully invested in it. Why? Because there's always a scapegoat. You can go back to the life that was mediocre. You can go back to the life that was average. Again, nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to become better, you have to be honest with yourself. And if you're not holding yourself accountable, there's always an escape. And if there's always an escape, you're never really fully committed, right? The best development and the best growth that you will find is when you fully jump in. It's not putting your feet in the water. It's not putting your hand in the water. It's not even a step in the water. It's jumping into the deep end and learning how to swim. Because when you do that, you're forcing yourself to become a different version. There's no going back. Even if you swim back to shore in the deep end, you already jumped in, right? There's a level of growth that already takes from getting out to getting in. And you have to understand, take that leap, take it before you're ready, and focus on yourself. It's going to be lonely. It's going to feel like the world is against you. There's going to be moments where it sucks, where it's challenging, where you feel like giving up. But what I say to you is one more step. One more step. The journey of self-development is like climbing Mount Everest. And sometimes you got to take that another step. It doesn't matter when the wind's blowing or when the weather is cold or when the rock beneath you moves. If you can take one more step each and every day, you're going to look up. And that peak may still be very far, but you're getting one step closer, one step closer. A few years, you'll look up and you'll be like, man, it's far, but it's not as far as it used to be. One step closer, one step closer. Do better for yourself. Claim better for your own life. Everything else will revolve and become better for it. You got any closing messages for us?
Just to throw on what you just said, it's like this road is lonely, but you have to realize that, like you said, for me, the military, it was, if it was a 10-mile and we carried on 80 pounds on our back, it was just, you want to quit, but you just take a step. Every time you want to quit, you just take a step. You take a step. And next thing you know, you're at mile 5, 7, and then you get there. And like you said, it's the same thing here. You just have to take a step, and it's going to be lonely. And sometimes you might not know where to start or what to do, but just start. And as you go, you will figure it out along the way. That's my closing message.
I like that, man. All right. So where can people find you at? Where are you at?
So I'm mainly on TikTok at Ochoa Johnny, and then on Instagram it's OCHV Johnny. And I'm gonna be posting more on Instagram as well. But those are my two main social medias that I use.
Sounds good, guys. Make sure you check him out. Make sure you follow his page, see his message. It's powerful, it's inspirational. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. And as always, gentlemen, I will catch you all in the next episode of the Gentleman's Atlas podcast.